She was the most powerful dragon spirit in the world. But after taking human form, she refused to dual cultivate with mortals, so they sealed her away for 1,000 years. Upon awakening, the first thing she encountered was a mysterious boy, badly wounded. Driven by curiosity, she used her spiritual energy to revive him. But to her surprise, the boy used some unknown method to make her willingly form a soul contract with him, even agreeing to dual cultivation without a hint of resistance. As it turned out, this boy was no ordinary human. He was Shao Run, a once-in-a-century genius from the Beastmaster sect. At a young age, he had already reached the golden core stage of cultivation, and he was expected to forge the legendary Heavenly Beast Core in the near future. To help him reach that goal, his master had prepared rare elixirs and ancient techniques for his breakthrough. Deeply moved, Shaoran consumed the elixir that very night and entered seclusion. Years of training and his innate talent finally paid off. He succeeded in forming his core. The resulting surge of energy triggered a massive celestial phenomenon that shook the entire sect. But before he could share the good news with his master, two mysterious figures suddenly broke into the room. What shocked him most was that the attackers were using techniques exclusive to the Beastmaster sect. Shaoran instantly understood there was no holding back. Fine, let them witness the true power of a heavenly beast core. In just a few moves, he turned the tide and swiftly defeated his opponents. But the next moment, an overwhelming force came crashing down from the shadows. Shaoran dodged just in time, barely escaping a deadly blow. Seeing the ambush fail, the assailant immediately retreated. Fueled by fury, Shaoran gave chase without hesitation. The two soon arrived at the edge of a steep cliff. There, the mysterious figure finally dropped the disguise, and with a casual strike, sent Shao Ren staggering backward. As the dust settled, Shao Ren's eyes widened in disbelief. That technique, it belonged to his master, Enchanting. It was then he realized the cruel truth. His own master had long coveted the heavenly beast core and would even betray his most beloved disciple to obtain it. In the blink of an eye, multiple streaks of green light pierced through Shao Ren's body. Against someone 2 realms above him, Shao Ren stood no chance. Moments later, other disciples arrived on the scene. But Enchanting had already bought off 2 core disciples as witnesses. With a flawless performance, he framed Shao Ren for treason and betrayal. And so, Shao Ren was cast off the cliff by the very man he once revered, falling into the abyss with hatred burning in his soul. But even after falling off the cliff, Shao Ren didn't die. Instead, by some wild twist of fate, he crash-landed right on the tail of an ancient dragon, interrupting a fierce battle between spirit beasts. The dragon stared down his broken, barely breathing body, but didn't devour him. Out of sheer curiosity. After all, it had been centuries since she'd seen a human. She chose to awaken him with her spirit energy. During the process, she suddenly caught a familiar scent, the unmistakable aura of a heavenly beast core. Her heart leapt, because that meant this human might be the key to her long-awaited freedom. Time passed. Then, with a gasp, Shao Ren suddenly opened his eyes. And standing before him was a stunning woman with curved horns growing from her head. Shao Ren was stunned. He had never heard of any spirit beast capable of taking human form, not even in the ancient records of the Beastmaster sect. But before he could say anything, the horned beauty spoke with a sly smile. Relax. I'm not here to eat you. I just want to do something fun with you. And with that, she collapsed onto the ground, her posture seductive and unrestrained, as she boldly invited him to dual cultivate. Shao Ren, a lifelong virgin and textbook ascetic, had never faced such a situation. His mind blanked. Reflexively, he blurted out, "No," but the dragon spirit, Ru, only chuckled and raised the stakes. "Agree to it, and I'll repair your broken body and lend you my power to take revenge." The word revenge struck like a bolt of lightning. Images of his master's betrayal flashed before his eyes, and hatred surged like wildfire in his chest. After a moment of silence, he nodded. The pact was formed. Ru's energy poured into him like a tidal wave, reigniting his lost cultivation and pushing it even further. Time blurred, and then, on a bright, peaceful morning, Shaoran slowly opened his eyes. His shatter meridians were fully restored. His strength had returned to the early golden core stage, pulsing with a power that far surpassed his former self. To test his newfound strength, Shaoran captured a juvenile fire serpent. Using it as bait, he lured out the adult serpent, a beast at the early golden core stage, just like him. But with a single punch, he obliterated it on the spot. The raw power behind that blow even left Shaoran himself stunned. His blood surged with excitement. He was more than ready to return to the Beastmaster sect and claim revenge. But Ru quickly stopped him. There was still one crucial task ahead. To leave the Valley of Beasts, he had to defeat its guardian, Zhanshu Zhuyan, a monstrous beast of unmatched strength. 3 months passed. By now, Shaoran had fully adapted to his new beast core. But Ru shook her head. From what she knew of Zhuyan, that level of power wouldn't cut it. Instead of being discouraged, Shaoran calmly closed his eyes and began meditating. Moments later, a dark golden gauntlet materialized on his arm, radiating an intimidating aura. Still, Ru remained unimpressed. To her, that earlier punch barely tapped into 30% of their full potential. "Let me show you what real power feels like," she said, and dived straight into his consciousness. "Watch closely. This is what I'm truly capable of." In an instant, torrents of spiritual energy surged through his entire body. As the punch was unleashed, a shockwave exploded outward like a tornado, tearing giant trees from the ground with brutal force. As the smoke cleared, all that remained was a massive crater, over 100 meters wide. Shaoran stood frozen in disbelief. How could someone with this kind of overwhelming power be trapped in a forgotten wasteland like this? Ru chuckled softly. Her race, she explained, was unique, blessed with immense power, but cursed to rely on a host to use it. Without one, she was nothing more than a wasted dragon. Now, after 3 months of fusion, Shaoran had fully stabilized at the early golden core stage that it was time to pay the gatekeeper, Zhuyan, a little visit. But the moment Zhuyan laid eyes on him, contempt flashed across the beast's face. With a thunderous explosion, Zhuyan launched the first attack. Shaoran barely dodged in time, a cold sweat running down his back. He had clearly underestimated this monster. Without hesitation, he unleashed the full force of his beast core. The next instant, he shot forward like a blazing meteor, aiming straight for Zhuyan. But after a fierce exchange, Zhuyan didn't even have scratch. Worse, Shaoran's spiritual energy was quickly running dry. Before he could recover, another brutal strike came crashing down. With nowhere to run, he had no choice but to take the hit head on. And in that moment, he finally understood just how terrifying this beast truly was. Just as Zhuyan prepared to deliver the final blow, Ru's voice echoed calmly. "Mind if I borrow your body for a bit?" But before she could finish, a blazing fireball exploded toward them. As the smoke cleared, a transformed figure emerged. Half beast, half human, Shaoran stood clad in obsidian armor, its surface gleaming with a deadly chill. Zhuyan still hadn't realized the danger. With a roar, he launched another punch. But this time, Shaoran met it head-on and sent the giant flying with a single strike. Seizing the opportunity, Shaoran dashed forward to deliver a brutal follow-up attack. And so, even with his peak golden core strength, the mighty Zhuyan fell, defeated by the combined force of man and dragon. After the battle, Ru extracted Zhuyan's beast core, gave a wicked smile, and sensually fed it to Shaoran. With the core absorbed, his wounds rapidly healed, and his cultivation surged. The air trembled. A celestial phenomenon erupted. Lightning cracked from the heavens, splitting the skies. Shaoran had broken through to the late golden core stage, and now wielded access to Ru's third-tier power, at last. He had the strength to stand toe-to-toe with the entire Beastmaster sect. Meanwhile, atop the cliffs of return, A green-haired figure was drawn to the sky by the surge of lightning. Curious at first, his expression quickly twisted into pure shock. Charging up the cliffside at full speed was none other than Xiao Ren. And that green-haired man? He was Xiao Ren's third junior brother, Nangong Qiushui. Seeing Xiao Ren alive and unharmed, Nangong's heart tightened with panic. What terrified him most was that Xiao Ren wasn't just alive, he was stronger than ever. But Nangong quickly forced himself to calm down. This was the Beastmaster sect's territory. No matter how strong Xiao Ren had become, there was no way he could take on the entire sect alone. But then came Xiao Ren's cold glare, and before another word could be spoken, he lunged forward with blazing fury. In a flash, the two exchanged blows, instantly sizing each other up. Nangong Qiushui had reached the peak of the Golden Core stage. Xiao Ren, on the other hand, was solidly in the late Golden Core stage. Still, Nangong was rattled. He had climbed this far only by using forbidden techniques gifted by their master. And yet, Xiao Ren, the so-called failure who had lost his beast core, was nearly on par with him. The thought infuriated him. With a snarl, Nangong charged. In his eyes, Xiao Ren, without a heavenly beast core, didn't even qualify to be his opponent. But when Nangong Qiushui unleashed his signature move, Serpent Fang Mirage, Xiao Ren simply raised a hand and crushed the serpent's head with ease. Unbeknownst to him, it was all a diversion. The real serpent had already slithered behind him. A massive explosion erupted, engulfing Xiao Ren in flames and shockwaves. Watching from a distance, Nangong sneered confidently. There was no way Xiao Ren survived that unscathed. But as the smoke cleared, Xiao Ren calmly stepped forward, completely unharmed. And now, a layer of gleaming dragon-scale armor shimmered over his body, radiating an icy, lethal aura. Xiao Ren was done playing games. Without a word, he raised his hand, ready to end Nangong Qiushui once and for all. But the moment his fingers brushed against him, Nangong's face suddenly began to melt, warping and dripping until it collapsed into a pool of thick green liquid. The fluid churned and twisted, gradually taking shape again. And then the real Nangong emerged from the shadows, his voice cold and calculating. "You think I'd face you head on? That was just a decoy, to see how much strength you've really recovered." As Nangong spoke, he moved to strike, intent on erasing what he saw as a traitor to the Beastmaster sect. But in the very next instant, an overwhelming force descended like a collapsing sky, engulfing both men in its crushing presence. Xiao Ren froze, the pressure so immense it felt as if he were a flickering flame beneath a full moon, utterly insignificant. He knew this aura too well that IT was his so-called mentor. Enchanting. Moments later, the man himself appeared, calm and composed. With a single command, he ordered Nangong to fall back. Xiao Ren didn't stop them. He could have, he knew he had the strength to make them stay. But this was not the moment to reveal his hand. With that, Xiao Ren turned and headed straight toward the Beastmaster sect. But when he arrived, what awaited him was a scene of devastation. The entire sect lay in ruins, abandoned and crumbling, as if it had been deserted for years. Ru blinked and muttered, "Your almighty sect wasn't looted, was it?" Xiao Ren searched every corner, but all he found were broken walls and scattered debris. Not a single soul in sight. Fury burned in his chest, but there was no one to unleash it on. Clenching his fists, he growled, "No, I have to find them. I need to take revenge." Ru cautiously asked, "And what if you don't?" Xiao Ren's expression twisted in rage. "Then I'll go to the Immortal Alliance, if I have to. I will find Enchanting. I'll kill him myself." At this point, hatred had clouded all reason. Ru quickly cupped his cheeks in both hands, gently coaxing. "Easy there, little one, breathe. Think for a second. What did your junior brother say back there?" Xiao Ren looked into her eyes as she calmly laid out. If Enchanting had absorbed the heavenly beast core, his power would have skyrocketed. Charging him blindly now? That was suicide. But the more she explained, the more his eyes trembled. His body shook. I can't accept this. How could they do this to me?" Seeing him so angry, so vulnerable, Rue couldn't help but feel a pang of helpless sorrow. Well then, she suddenly grinned mischievously. To stop you from doing anything dumb, I guess I'll have to activate my personal safety protocol. With that, she started running her hands all over him with exaggerated seriousness. In the next instant, Rue hijacked Xiao Ren's body and bolted out of the ruins without warning. With one powerful leap, they plunged off the cliff, landing right back in the familiar depths of Beast Valley. The outside world may be flashy, Rue mused, but nothing beats the peace and simplicity of this place, don't you think? Once back in the valley, she kept gently coaxing him to calm down. But Xiao Ren stayed silent, face scrunched up in a full-on sulk. Wait, you're not still mad about me dragging you back here to train, are you? He turned his head away defiantly, Rue giggled, and leaned closer, speaking like a doting big sister. Come on now, don't be mad, little one. Seeing he still refused to speak, Rue batted her eyes mischievously and teased. Tisich, I was going to share some very important intel with you, but if you're giving me the cold shoulder, I guess I'll keep it to myself. Just as expected, Xiao Ren immediately turned back, eyes wide. Wait, what intel? Rue playfully turned her head away and huffed. Oh, now you want to talk? Too late. Xiao Ren's cheeks flushed red. Yeah, he realized maybe he had been acting a bit too childish back there. Thankfully, Rue didn't hold it against him. Instead, she calmly said, based on the aura I sensed earlier, Wanting hasn't fully absorbed the power of the heavenly beast core yet. Which means you still have time, but not much. You must grow stronger before he completes the fusion. And this Beast Valley is the perfect place for that. Just as they were speaking, Rue suddenly tensed. Hold on, someone else is nearby. She turned and spotted a young girl being chased by a massive black panther. The beast's gaping jaws were nervously eyeing Xiao Ren from behind the fire. After all, according to everything she'd heard, Xiao Ren was a wanted criminal, a traitor of the sect, a cold-blooded killer of his own master. Yet the man before her was calm, even gentle. Nothing like the monster in the rumors that he smiled gently. Hungry? Come eat. Oh wow, that smells amazing. Qin Li's eyes sparkled as she dove into the food. Whoever says senior brother Xiao is a bad guy, I'll slap them myself. And just like that, the little foodie Qin Li was completely won over by grilled meat. As the warmth of the fire settled in, the two began talking more comfortably. Hearing that Xiao Ren had issues with his master, Qin Li naively waved her meat skewer like a diplomat. Senior brother Xiao, you and Alliance leader Ian must have just had a misunderstanding. Tell me what happened. I'll talk to my master and help smooth things over. Alliance leader said he deciphered the Beastmaster sect's secret techniques and successfully formed a heavenly beast core. Before she could finish, the fire pit erupted in sparks. Xiao Ren clenched his fists, seething. That shameless old fox, he used his heavenly beast core to climb to the top. And had the gall to take all the credit? Qin Li stared in shock, jaw nearly dropping. Wait, are you saying that core was actually yours? Xiao Ren let out a cold chuckle. Exactly. Since you're so curious, let me tell you the story from my side. The clueless. How did a girl like this end up in Beast Valley? Xiao Ren was genuinely curious now. He frowned slightly. Well, if you've got nothing urgent to do, you should head back. This place is way too dangerous. But Qin Li balled her fists and looked determined. No, I do have something important to do. Senior brother Xiao, will you help me? She straightened up and explained, I came here to catch a golden voice spirit bird as a birthday gift for my master. I even spent 5,000 spirit stones to buy a special treasure map for it. Xiao Ren took the map, glanced at it, and frowned. What the? This is just a bunch of scribbles. Someone sold you this for 5,000. I know, right? Qin Li beamed. That's why I bargained it down to 3,000. Super deal. Xiao Ren stared at her smug little grin, utterly at a loss. In the end, he sighed, guess I'll stick around for a while. Girls this naive don't last long out here. And so, the three of them set off together on a journey to find the golden voice spirit bird. Along the way, Rue leaned in beside Xiao Ren and whispered, My lord, That map the little girl's holding, it's not ordinary. You need to get your hands on it. Xiaorun nodded silently. His plan was simple. Help her catch the bird, and once the map was useless, she'd probably give it to him willingly. But during the chase, something unexpected happened. The spirit bird had a clean shot at escape, yet it turned back. It was protecting its babies. The sight struck a chord in Qin Li's heart. She couldn't bring herself to go through with it. She gave up the capture entirely and instead pulled out a healing talisman, using it to treat the mother bird's wounds. In the end, Xiaorun still got the map he wanted without lifting a finger. He glanced over at Qin Lu, smiling brightly, crouched beside the massive bird completely at ease. Ru murmured thoughtfully, "You and her, you're the same kind of people, but one day that innocence, that kindness might become your greatest weakness." Xiaorun didn't respond. He simply stared into the distance, where Qin Lu was now laughing and running in circles, being chased by the bird she'd just healed. Turning his gaze back to the map, Xiaorun finally asked the question that had been nagging at him. At Ru's instruction, he closed his eyes. Spiritual energy surged through his pupils, activating a hidden technique. Suddenly, the messy scribbles on the map transformed. Routes, runes, and hidden markings became perfectly clear. Leaving Qin Lu behind, the two of them followed the map deep into the Beast Valley, arriving at a secluded mountain cave shrouded in mystery. "So, what is this place?" Xiaorun asked, glancing around the dim cavern that Ru smiled faintly. "This is where I once lived with that legendary figure." "Wait, you lived here?" Xiaorun blinked. "Then why did you need the map to find it?" Ru giggled and waved a hand. "It's been ages, okay? The place changed so much I barely recognized it." Then she leaned in closer, smirking, by the stone door, her voice soft and filled with emotion. "My lord, Ru has returned." In the next moment, glowing blue runes began to spread across the surface. Ancient symbols pulsing like stars coming to life. "Open," she commanded firmly. With a deep rumble, the stone door parted, revealing a dim, plain stone chamber beyond. Xiaorun blinked. "Wait, this is where the former Beast Lord lived? It's so basic." Ru noticed his confusion and quietly replied. "The Beast Lord was an odd one, though he held power that could shake the heavens. The righteous sects cast him aside. In the end, this dark little cave was all he had left." She looked toward Xiaorun, her tone deepening. "Do you know why I chose you? It wasn't just because of your heavenly beast core. It's because you and him share the same kind of fate." She walked slowly toward the far corner of the room, where an ancient stone coffin, tangled in thick vines, lay untouched. "All I want is for you not to follow the same tragic path." Xiaorun could feel the sorrow in her voice, but he didn't know how to respond. When she placed her hands on the coffin and began to open it, he tensed up, alarmed. Thankfully, all she did was reach inside and pull out a carefully wrapped bundle of jade scrolls. It turned out this place was a ceremonial tomb. The Beast Lord, who had raised Ru like his own daughter, chose to face his final battle alone, leaving behind only his legacy and her, hoping one day she'd find someone truly worthy. But Ru never saw him return. Instead, one day, she felt their spiritual bond forcibly severed. Her power plummeted, and she was trapped in the Beast Valley for centuries. "Until I met you," she said softly, placing the jade scroll in his hands. "Now it belongs to you." The moment Xiaorun touched the scroll, arcane runes surged forth and enveloped him completely. When his vision cleared, he found himself standing on a vast grassy plain. In the distance sat a rugged man with wild robes and an untamed presence. Xiaorun stepped forward respectfully. "Senior, are you the Beast Lord?" The man gave a cocky grin. "TCH, you're not much to look at." Without warning, he flicked a wine bowl toward him. In that split second, Xiaorun broke into a cold sweat. The pressure from the bowl was overwhelming, far greater than even his old master. He couldn't take it head on. Only after entering his fusion state did he barely manage to stop it in place. With sweat pouring down his face, he downed the entire bowl in one go, then asked, "How was that, Senior?" The Beast Lord pointed at him and smirked. Terrible drinker. One sip, and you're already blushing. But your strength not bad. But in the next instant, he vanished, only to reappear right behind Xiao Run like a phantom. His voice was chilling. Why is Ru's beast core inside you? A wave of murderous intent surged forth like a frozen storm. Xiaoran felt his whole body seize up, unable to move an inch. Gritting his teeth, he forced out the words, I was betrayed. My core was shattered. Ru, she saved me with hers. Now our lives are bound. One core, one fate. Is that so? The Beast Lord's voice turned darker. And why should I believe you? Suddenly, the pressure intensified. It was as if a mountain had dropped onto his shoulders. Xiao Ren's knees buckled, but he gritted his teeth and held firm. He refused to kneel. Outside the trial, Ru suddenly sensed something wrong. She looked toward the sealed stone door and whispered, his breath, it's erratic. What's happening in there, my lord? Outside the cave, Ru sat quietly, waiting. Suddenly, the stone door creaked open, and Xiao Ren stepped out. She rushed to his side. Well, what did the jade scroll reveal? Xiao Ren glanced down at the glowing jade in his hand, his tone serious. I met the Beast Lord himself. Flashback. Inside the trial space, the crushing pressure still loomed as the Beast Lord asked coldly, Who are you really? Slumped on the ground, Xiao Ren stared up, unwavering. There's no need to test me further. Ru saved my life. If she ever needs me, I will risk everything for her. The Beast Lord had known all along. He only needed to see that conviction for himself. With a nod, he withdrew his pressure and passed down the true beast mastery technique, entrusting Ru to Xiao Ren's care. After offering a few final words of advice, the projection faded, and Xiao Ren was returned to the cave. Just then, Ru channeled her power through his body. Glowing blue light wrapped around them as droplets of spirit water formed midair. With a single wave, the entire cave collapsed, reduced to rubble. The memories buried there, now sealed forever beneath stone. Back at the Beastmaster sect, Immortal stood coldly by the beast arena, using the heaven-grade beast core to refine each captured creature's powers into pitch-black pills. Two disciples approached, reporting on the Grand Alliance Summit. Aside from 3 of the 4 great sects who still resist, the rest have pledged their allegiance. Immortal's eyes darkened. He handed them each a freshly refined pill and ordered grimly, anyone who refuses, kill them without hesitation. Meanwhile, deep in the Myriad Beast Valley, Xiao Ren sat cross-legged, immersed in cultivation, trying to comprehend the true legacy of the Beast Lord. The Beastmaster sect believed in dominating beasts, but true mastery lies in harmony. To treat beasts not as tools, but as allies. When he and Ru become truly one in spirit and heart, their combined strength will transcend mortal limits. At that moment, the Beast Lord's projection reappeared, pressing 2 fingers against Xiao Ren's forehead, pouring his final spiritual essence into him. Though Xiao Ren's current level made it impossible to grasp the full depth of the inheritance, that surge of spirit power would be enough to become his trump card in battles to come. Nangong Xiaoshui and Li Jian took the black pills and began their secluded breakthroughs within the sect. Immortal waved his hand, sending out 2 streams of spirit energy to support their ascension. Instantly, massive and terrifying beast phantoms emerged above their heads. Their eyes turned pitch black, and a strange, ominous energy leaked from their bodies. Bowing respectfully to Immortal, the 2 revealed their nascent souls, now fused with sin beasts. The very name of the beasts echoed the eerie, twisted nature of their corrupted energy. They departed at once, ordered to eliminate all dissenters and solidify Immortal's rule as the leader of the alliance. Standing before the towering beast altar, their eyes burned with excitement for the sect's grand ambitions. Meanwhile, Xiao Ren had already slipped into the city. Ru glanced at a tall pavilion and teased, Your master has surprisingly refined taste. Xiao Ren scoffed coldly. He's no master of mine. Seeing him respond with reason instead of rage, Ru nodded in quiet approval. He had grown. Shaoran noticed a public notice posted along the street. It announced the upcoming beast rite hosted by the beast-taming sect. Ru chuckled. Wanting will surely use the heaven-grade beast pill to subdue an ancient monster. Looks like he wants to show off his might in front of all the sections. A spectacle like that? Shaoran wouldn't miss it for the world. Ru suggested with a grin. Before we stir up any trouble and get chased down, why not take a stroll and soak in the buzz of city life? However, they hadn't received an invitation to the beast rite. Shaoran suddenly recalled the beast lord's words. To one day, find Ru a truly safe haven. Sneaking into the Alliance's stronghold would be far too risky. He couldn't take that chance with her safety. Before he could figure out a plan, fate delivered one. Someone actually brought them an invitation. A disciple from the Crimson Blaze banner kicked down a cultivator who had just spoken ill of the beast-taming sect. That man, Chu Yin, came from a sect known to be wanting slapdogs. No wonder he couldn't tolerate any criticism. The cultivator roared back in defiance. You Crimson Blaze thugs think you're untouchable? Your day will come. Chu Yin sneered, igniting flames in his left hand, ready to strike with his blazing sky palm. Just as the scorching palm was about to land, a surge of blue energy intervened, effortlessly halting the attack. It was Shaoran who stepped in. Wearing a mask and a hood that concealed his identity, he calmly gave a fake name, Shuangyu. Chu Yin had charged in full of bravado, but when he returned, his face was a swollen mess, beaten up so badly he looked like a pig's head. Worse yet, his invitation had been snatched by Shaoran. Humiliated, he ran to his banner chief in tears. The chief, with a cold, venomous stare, etched the name Shuangyu into his memory. He vowed to reduce the man to ashes. News of the Crimson Blaze banner's public humiliation reached Li Jian's ears that very night. Enraged, he slammed the edge of his desk into splinters. The banner chief rushed over with disciples, falling to his knees, sweating profusely as he tried to explain that Chu Yin was only defending the sect's honor. That only made Li Jian angrier. Using the beast-taming sect's name to show off, only to get your face smashed in? That's the real disgrace. A terrifying pressure burst from him, the aura of a nascent soul cultivator. It was so suffocating that even kneeling became too much for Chu Yin. His body trembled uncontrollably. Gong Sunfen quickly pleaded for mercy, naming the culprit as Shuangyu, claiming he insulted the sect first. The name meant nothing to Li Jian. Anyone who gave a name without a sect was likely either from a reclusive clan or using a fake identity. In the end, he let Chu Yin off the hook and tossed the mission back to the Crimson Blaze banner. Find that man. Redeem yourselves. But the moment the chief stepped outside, his face twisted into scorn. He had no intention of hunting down Shuangyu. The guy just stole an invitation. Clearly, he just wanted to sneak into the ceremony. Let the sect deal with him then. In a world like this, alliances and oaths were nothing but smoke. He knew that all too well. So did Li Jian. He was fully aware that many in the alliance, like Gong Sunfen, were all smiles on the surface, but snakes underneath. This beast right would be the perfect time to show everyone who was boss. Back at the inn, Shaoran finally shook off the overly grateful cultivator he had saved. Removing his disguise, he couldn't help but feel a bit lucky. He'd only planned to use Chu Yin to lure the beast-taming sect, but the guy happened to be carrying an actual invitation. That saved him a lot of trouble. There were still many in the city who opposed the beast-taming sect. For wanting, this beast right was the perfect chance to assert dominance. Ru tried to casually probe Shaoran about his next move, but he completely missed the hidden meaning, simply brushing it off with a smile. Don't worry. I won't do anything reckless. Meanwhile, the grateful cultivator was drinking with two fellow sect members, singing praises about Shaoran's strength. Trusting them as his brothers, he didn't notice the sinister glint in their eyes as he spoke. So when one of them suddenly struck him with a palm, he had no time to react. Staggering back in disbelief, he stared at his so-called junior brothers, only to hear their cold confession. They'd long grown tired of his rebellion against the beast-taming sect. Who were we to fight them? One sneered. Our sect already pledged allegiance. Without hesitation, the traitor's hand turned into a blade of spirit energy, cleanly slicing off his head. The dull thud of a body hitting the floor jolted Xiao Ren awake from his nap at the inn. Rue, still engrossed in her skincare ritual, hadn't heard a thing. But Xiao Ren felt something was off. He rushed downstairs, and just in time to overhear the two junior brothers whispering loudly. Drug his food and drink, then kill him while he's out cold. We'll offer his head to the beast-taming sect. A sharp voice cut through the air. The two flinched and immediately switched to flattery, babbling, "We just took care of that traitorous senior brother for you." But Xiao Ren wasn't deaf. He'd heard every word of their little scheme. "Cut the act," he said coldly. Realizing they'd been exposed, one of them raised his hand, summoning sand to bind Xiao Ren, while the other hurled a spear of compacted dust. Xiao Ren looked at them with nothing but disdain, casually breaking free from the sandy restraints. With his left hand now sheathed in black armor, he caught the sand spear with ease. The two attackers staggered back in horror as beast-like features began to surface on Xiao Ren's body. What are you? A monster?" Then the roof exploded. An enormous blue dragon surged into the sky, radiating the overwhelming power of a top-tier beast core. Far away, Enchanting of the beast-taming sect suddenly sensed a familiar pulse of energy. His own beast core trembled in response. Qin Lu returned to her sect empty-handed. The moment she saw her master, Zhang Changxi, she blurted out that she had encountered the infamous traitor, Xiao Ren. Coincidentally, the head of the Miao sect, Mu Chengxiu, was also present. The moment they heard that name, both their expressions turned grim. Zhang Changxi quickly pulled Qin Lu away before she could say anything more. Mu Chengxiu stroked his beard thoughtfully, musing to himself, "Xiao Ren, could he be the weak point in the beast-taming sect's grand scheme?" At dawn, townsfolk gathered outside the inn, staring at the ruins. It had clearly been destroyed overnight. The crowd murmured in hushed tones. With the beast-taming sect's grand ceremony coming up, could someone be targeting them already? But the whispers died instantly as Li Jian arrived. He stepped into the wreckage, scanning carefully, until a faint trace of lingering energy caught his attention. He crouched down to sense it more closely, and his eyes widened in disbelief. It was the aura of the Jade Tiger Fist. "So, that Shuang is actually Xiao Ren," he growled. He clenched his fist, scattering the lingering energy as fury burned in his chest. That bastard just won't stay dead. He's clearly here to sabotage the ceremony. I need to report this to Master immediately. With a swift motion, Li Jian vanished from the crowd using light footwork, leaving only a blur behind. Hidden beneath his hood, Xiao Ren stood silently among the people, watching Li Jian's every move with a cold gaze. As he quietly slipped away, two shadowy figures stealthily followed behind him. Meanwhile, Li Jian returned to the sect just in time to witness Enchanting complete his breakthrough. Several beast cores hovered around the heavenly tier core, spinning as if to congratulate their master's rise in power. Li Jian wasted no time and reported everything Xiao Ren had done in Tendirection City. Upon hearing that name, Enchanting let out a dismissive sneer, followed by a few mocking laughs. "So, he's planning to crash the ceremony and expose the truth, hoping to ruin our sect's reputation. But he's dreaming. As his former master, I know better than anyone. He may be clever, but he's far too weak to change anything." Enchanting's smile faded into a dark scowl. "Make the preparations," he ordered coldly. "Let the grand ceremony be his grave." Xiao Ren strolled calmly into a quiet alleyway, all the while keeping an eye on the two figures tailing him. A faint smile curled beneath his hood as a flicker of battle intent lit up in his eyes. "Looks like we've got rats," he muttered to Rue. The two stalkers exchanged glances. Was he talking to someone? Did he have backup? But after scanning the area, they found no one else. Since they'd been discovered, there was no point hiding anymore. Flames ignited around their hands as they leapt into the air, launching an attack straight at Xiao Ren. The moment he saw the flickering fire energy, Shaoran immediately recognized them. Disciples of the Crimson Banner, Li Jian's men. One of them hurled a barrage of fireballs mid-air, crashing down where Shaoran stood with deafening explosions. The second joined in, hurling flaming blasts in perfect sync, determined to turn the alley into a furnace. As the flames died down and the smoke thickened, Shaoran stepped out of the haze. His cloak was charred and torn, but not a scratch marred his body. Meanwhile, not far away, two figures stood quietly atop a nearby tavern, watching the fight unfold. One of them, a man with a braided ponytail, rested a boot on the railing, his smirk full of contempt. Beside him stood Chu Yan, who respectfully called him young master. The Crimson Banner's heir raised an eyebrow mockingly, showing no regard for Shaoran, and even declared he'd slice him up to christen his new blade. As the smoke cleared, Shaoran calmly put his mask back on. At his feet lay the two unconscious disciples who had trailed him, defeated without effort. Just as he wondered why such weaklings were sent, a loud-mouthed man jumped down from above, swearing as he landed. A burst of flame erupted in the man's hand, quickly morphing into a blazing red sword. With both hands gripping the hilt, he brought the fiery blade crashing down, carving a deep, charred trench into the ground. Though the move looked fierce, Shaoran dodged it with ease, prompting a flicker of surprise from the attacker. The man introduced himself as Gongsun Lian, heir to the Crimson Banner. Shaoran immediately suspected he was another lackey of the beast-taming sect. Sure enough, the name, Li Jian, soon slipped from Gongsun's mouth, confirming Shaoran's guess. Gongsun's face darkened at Shaoran's blatant disrespect toward the sect. To him, this masked man was just another reckless fool begging for death. Gongsun Lian raised one hand and summoned a blazing flame, coating his blade in searing fire. With a single swing, a wave of scorching blade energy shot toward Shaoran, its heat fierce enough to melt steel. Ru quickly saw through the technique and warned Shaoran not to block it head-on. But just as the slash neared, it suddenly morphed into a fiery web, spreading like a deadly trap. It all happened in the blink of an eye. By the time Shaoran realized it, escape was no longer an option. A wave of searing heat bore down on him. This was bad. Meanwhile, someone else had been quietly watching the fight. Nangong Qiushue followed Li Jian's gaze and focused on Shaoran. He spoke softly, "He's gotten strong." Sensing Li Jian's scrutinizing look, Nangong calmly stated that no matter their past grudges, removing Shaoran should be the top priority. For once, the two brothers found common ground and quickly agreed to deal with Shaoran together. Back in the alley, Shaoran barely managed to block Gongsun Lian's attack by fusing his strength with ruse. Seeing the beast-like traits emerge on Shaoran again, Gongsun only sneered more. To him, this was just another desperate trick to survive. He raised his blade high and unleashed blazing inferno slash. 3 massive arcs of fire tore through the ground, roaring toward Shaoran like unstoppable meteors. Ru shouted for him to fall back, but Shaoran stubbornly thrust his hand forward to meet the attack head-on. The collision of their powers shook the earth beneath them. Gongsun Lian, brimming with arrogance, assumed victory was his. With a cold snort and his blade slung over his shoulder, he turned his back, fully convinced Shaoran had been obliterated. Gongsun Lian had barely taken a few steps when a cold voice from behind forced him to stop in his tracks. Turning around, he saw Shaoran, his shirt torn to shreds from the battle, revealing even more of the black armor that now covered his body. Gongsun Lian's eyes widened. The man was completely unscathed. For the first time, he looked at Shaoran not with disdain, but with seriousness. The arrogance on his face faded. He bent slightly, raising the blazing inferno blade with both hands as flames surged across its edge. But Shaoran stomped the ground and launched himself into the air. Midair, he activated Shadow of the Demon Moon, instantly summoning multiple doppelgangers. Cold sweat trickled down Gongsun's forehead, This was astral projection, a technique only available to cultivators of the divine transformation realm. Several clones attacked simultaneously, each one striking with the power of the original. Gong Sun had a fight with everything he had just to keep up. Then Shao Run inhaled deeply, channeling his strength into his core. Red veins lit up across his black armor like lava cracks. He opened his mouth and unleashed the Zhuyan's breath. A blazing inferno cannon roared straight toward Gong Sun Lian. In panic, Gong Sun raised his sword to block, but against such raw power, it was utterly useless. Desperate, he shouted out his name and background, hoping to earn mercy. But before he could finish his plea, the flame struck him down. As the battle ended, Shaoran landed softly on the scorched earth. He stared at his bloodstained hand, stunned, this power from the beast core. Maybe it really is strong enough to take his revenge. No one had expected so many sects to show up for the Grand Beast ceremony. Watching the crowd, Li Jian clenched his fists. He was determined. He wouldn't let Shao Ren destroy the honor of their sect. Baiwa sect had also arrived, with Qin Lu attending alongside her master. Before they set off, her master warned her repeatedly, "Stay away from Shaoran. That path leads only to ruin." Qin Lu nodded obediently, but in her heart, she'd already made up her mind. She would find out the truth for herself. As the ceremony approached, Nangong Xiushui arrived with 2 disciples and bowed before his master, respectfully inviting Yin Wanting to begin the event. Yin Wanting smiled with satisfaction, his voice calm, yet laced with menace. "Let's see if Shaoran has the guts to show his face." As he spoke, a dark glint flickered in his eyes. At that very moment, the one on his mind, Shaoran, was sprinting across rooftops, heading straight for the ceremony. Ru could feel his excitement and fury. It was time. Revenge was within reach. Today, before all the cultivators present, he would expose Yin Wanting for the monster he truly was. The Grand Beast ceremony commenced with overwhelming grandeur, shaking the entire region. As Yin Wanting stepped onto the stage, several exotic beasts soared into the sky at his command, creating a jaw-dropping spectacle. The dazzling scene made even Qin Lu gasp in admiration. Among them, the ancient beast sky-cleaving Thunderhawk now served as his personal mount, drawing stunned murmurs from the crowd. He began his speech, warmly welcoming all sects who had come to witness the event. Just then, a radiant Luan bird with brilliant feathers flew out, and the crowd erupted in awe. Such a divine creature willingly followed him. After building the momentum, he finally revealed the first reason for this gathering: his triumph over an ancient beast and the forging of its beast core through secret arts. This powerful core, capable of greatly enhancing cultivation, would be the prize in a competition among young disciples from all sects. The strongest would claim it. Then his tone turned sharp. He declared that the sect traitor Shaoran would appear at the ceremony, urging everyone to join in eliminating him. Gasps swept through the audience. The members of the Immortal Alliance were visibly shaken. Though Yin Wanting spoke with certainty, Qin Lu, who had once been helped by Shaoran, couldn't believe he'd truly betrayed his sect. Uneasy and suspicious, she began scanning the crowd, wondering if the ceremony was nothing more than a trap for Shaoran. Just as Yin Wanting predicted, Shaoran swaggered to the entrance of the Grand Hall, where Gongsun Fun, leader of the Crimson Flame Banner, had been waiting for him. In his last battle with Gongsun Lian, Shaoran had shown no mercy, killing him with a decisive final blow. Now, both old grudges and fresh vengeance burned within Gongsun Fun as he prepared to settle the score. Shaoran remained unfazed. Since his identity had already been exposed, he dropped his disguise with a sneer. Enraged by his arrogance, Gongsun Fun's veins bulged as he roared, vowing to make Shao Run pay in blood. Flames erupted from his fists, the signature fire fists of the Crimson Flame Banner, burning with intense spiritual power. As a sect leader, his strength was a clear level above his son's. Shaoran couldn't afford to be careless this time. The pain of losing his son turned into searing fury. Gong Sun Fun's killing intent blazed hotter than the fire in his hands. He was hell-bent on avenging his child. He gathered his full spiritual energy into a blazing sphere, far more potent than any ordinary fireball. Even Ru warned urgently. It was far too dangerous to take head-on. Just before impact, the fireball exploded into a towering pillar of flame, distorting the very air around it. And like father, like son, after unleashing the attack, Gong Sunfen prematurely assumed victory, convinced that Xiao Run had been reduced to ashes. From the thick smoke burst out several of Xiao Ren's clones, each faster than the last, all rushing to eliminate anyone standing in the way of his revenge. Even the battle-hardened Gong Sun Fun, with a lifetime of experience, found these bizarre shadow clones unsettling. He quickly summoned a barrier of fire-infused spiritual energy, shielding himself from Xiao Ren's assault. But something felt off. Xiao Ren suddenly sensed the strangeness. With all the commotion, why hadn't anyone from the ceremony come to investigate? The silence was unnatural. That brief moment of distraction was all Gong Sunfen needed. He surged forward and slammed Xiao Run with a burning fist, sending him flying. Pain spread across Xiao Ren's chest, the searing force still lingering. Thankfully, Ru quickly stepped in to purge the burning energy from his body. Gong Sunfen sneered and answered Xiao Ren's confusion, pulling out a dark, shell-like object. It was a gift from Li Jian, a mirage beast known as Shun that cast a powerful illusion. As long as Xiao Run was alive, no one would detect the battle outside the grand ceremony. The Beast Soul sect had gone to extreme lengths to trap Xiao Run, and even Gong Sunfen was curious about the reason. Xiao Run didn't bother to hide the truth. He laid it bare, the blood feud between him and enchanting. Hearing this, Gong Sunfen was unexpectedly intrigued. He suddenly saw value in keeping Xiao Run alive. Perhaps one day, he could use this grudge as leverage against enchanting. But the death of his son still cried for vengeance. With a roar, he summoned a crimson flame blade and lunged straight at Xiao Run. While Xiao Run battled fiercely outside, the dueling arena inside the grand ceremony was just as intense. On stage stood Li Jian, who wasted no time crippling his opponent's arm with a single brutal strike. Watching his ruthless protege from afar, enchanting turned to Mu Chongxiu and asked with a satisfied smile, "What do you think?" Mu Chongxiu responded with nothing but flattery, while Zheng Chongxi looked visibly disturbed. She couldn't deny Li Jian's cultivation level, but his methods were far too cruel. enchanting's mind wandered to the sects that had refused to attend the ceremony. Fury swelled in his heart. He vowed to remove them from the Immortal Alliance. But before that, what he wanted most was for someone to eliminate Xiao Ren once and for all. Back at the battlefield, Xiao Ren struggled to keep up with Gong Sunfen's relentless assaults. His own strength alone was no longer enough. He called out to Ru for help, and in an instant, the right half of his body transformed, taking on the beastly traits of Ru, brimming with lethal aura. Gong Sunfen gasped in shock. Now he finally understood how his genius son had died at the hands of this monster. With Ru's power coursing through him, Xiao Run felt an overwhelming surge of energy. Ru's voice echoed in his mind. "This has dragged on too long. End it." Xiao Run rose into the air, summoning several brilliant spheres of blue water energy. The barrage of water orbs rained down like a flood. Gong Sunfen's face twisted in panic as he scrambled to raise a wall of fire to shield himself. Waves of water and fire energy clashed violently. Not far from the battlefield, a figure in a black cloak silently observed the fight. With a sharp gaze, he instantly recognized it. Xiao Run was channeling the power of a calamity beast. What's more, his cryptic tone hinted at something unsettling. Perhaps Xiao Run wasn't from the human realm at all. As the battle raged on, the entire area was reduced to rubble. Gong Sunfen had vanished beneath the debris, yet his presence could still be felt. He was not dead. Urged by Ru, Xiao Run remained tense and alert, knowing the real danger had yet to pass. Suddenly, a roar burst from behind. Gong Sunfen erupted from the broken stones, flames roaring in his grasp as he launched a surprise attack. Although Xiao Run had anticipated a counterattack, he couldn't dodge in time. Crossing his arms to block the strike, he was knocked back several meters by the impact. Flames surged across Gong Sun-Fan's entire body. His clothes were long since reduced to ash. Now completely crimson and engulfed in fire, he had activated his final technique, Blazing Flame Battle Form, the ultimate secret art of the Chilean banner. The power of the Calamity Beast was nearly invincible against foes of the same level. But against someone a whole realm stronger, it all came down to Xiao Ren's talent and willpower. The mysterious cloaked man muttered to himself. He hailed from a place known as the Demon Realm, where even there, Calamity Beasts were a rare legend. Ru understood the danger of fighting across realms and warned Xiao Ren. Strike first, or risk being crushed in a drawn-out battle. Xiao Ren's expression grew tense. His fusion with the Calamity Beast's power had deepened. Determined to end it quickly, he summoned his clones and launched a preemptive strike. He began with a burst of speed-based skills, followed by two spiraling water cyclones that surged in from both sides, pincer style. But no matter how fast he was, the difference in realm was clear. Gong Sun-Fan clapped his hands together, and his body surged in size, transforming into a towering flame giant. Just before the twin cyclones hit, he leapt into the air and slammed down a blazing giant blade, both neutralizing the attack and slicing straight toward Xiao Run. Gritting his teeth, Xiao Run crossed his arms to block. Spirit energy roared through his veins as he shouted with all his strength, "Break!" The giant blade shattered from the impact, but the ground beneath Xiao Ren fractured into pieces from the force. That blow made one thing painfully clear: battling across realms wasn't just hard. If he kept dragging this out, it wouldn't just end in defeat, it could cost him his life. Surprisingly, Gong Sun-Fan didn't press the attack. Instead, he offered a deal: hand over the mysterious technique, and he'd help Xiao Ren resolve his grudge with the beast-taming sect. But Xiao Ren wasn't the least bit tempted. His eyes remained cold, his stance unmoved. He clearly had no intention of bargaining. With a deep inhale, he unleashed another blast of the Zhu Yan's breath. Though it burned with the same fire energy, this time the flames were noticeably weaker. Gong Sun-Fan effortlessly raised his flame blade and slashed it apart. The drop in power was obvious. He guessed that Xiao Ren must have sustained serious injuries from the earlier clash. Just as he pondered that, Xiao Run charged again, his nails now long and razor-sharp, his teeth like a beast's fangs. Gong Sun-Fan was taken aback. Xiao Ren no longer fought like a cultivator. He attacked like a feral beast, driven by instinct and rage. Meanwhile, back at the grand ceremony, the results of the martial contest were announced. Unsurprisingly, the victor was the beast-taming sect's own disciple, Li Jian. No matter how sweetly Yin Wanting spoke of unity, preaching that the four great sects of the Immortal Alliance were one family, everyone present knew the truth. After today, that fragile balance between the sects was shattered. The illusion of harmony had crumbled beyond repair. After securing first place, Li Jian swaggered over to taunt Nangong. But Nangong barely reacted. He waved him off and rushed toward Xiao Ren's battlefield. Though he often mocked Xiao Ren, deep down he wished the guy would just vanish once and for all. With a light tap of his foot, he dashed forward, eager to witness Xiao Ren getting crushed by a nascent soul cultivator. But as soon as he reached the edge of the battlefield, he froze in shock. What he saw was completely lopsided. Gong Sun-Fan, a full-fledged nascent soul stage fighter, was on the defensive. Xiao Ren's multiple clones had him surrounded, bombarding him nonstop with surging spheres of energy, leaving Gong Sun-Fan struggling just to defend. What no one realized was that this beast-like fighting style wasn't what Xiao Ren had intended. A strange red glow flickered in his eyes, and an unsettling, almost feral grin curled on his lips. No matter how hard Ru called out to him from within, Xiao Ren didn't respond. His mind was open. Just then, Nangong sprang into action, his attack slicing through the air, now less than a meter from Xiao Ren's back. At that exact moment, Umo descended into the battlefield. Dropping from above, he landed gracefully in front of Nangong, floating midair with a faint, amused curve at the corner of his lips. With a casual tap of his staff, a powerful shock wave burst forth, sending both Nangong and Gongsun flying backward several meters with ease. Ignoring Nangong's confused glare, Umo didn't even spare him a glance. Instead, he turned directly to face Shaoran. "Impressive talent," he remarked with interest, but blinded by hatred and now corrupted by the primal instincts of a beast. Ru stiffened. This man could see her and even perceive the change in Shaoran. He was no ordinary cultivator. As if sensing her thoughts, Umo calmly said, "I fought the Beast Lord 1,000 years ago. Naturally, I've seen you before as well." He met the Lord. Ru's heart tightened with unease. He even claimed to have battled the Beast Lord himself. Just then, Shaoran suddenly let out a feral roar, so deep and guttural it barely sounded human anymore. While Ru panicked, Umo remained unfazed, watching the scene with the disinterest of someone watching a predictable play. He summoned a faintly glowing golden orb, and with a flick of his wrist, golden ribbons shot out, swiftly binding Xiao Ren's arms and legs, leaving him completely restrained. Just then, Nangong's voice cut through the tense silence. "Hand Shaoran over to me," he said. The mood instantly soured. Umo's face darkened, and he turned a sharp, icy glare on Nangong. "Shut up," he snapped. A cold sweat broke out on Nangong's forehead. The sheer pressure from Umo's aura crushed the air around him, leaving him frozen in place, unable to speak another word. Yet Gongsun Fun, oblivious to the danger, scoffed. "What are you yapping about? Let's just finish him off together." Nangong hesitated, then thought, maybe he could let this old fool test the waters first. The two charged forward in tandem, attempting a sneak attack on Umo. Finally turning to face them, Umo's expression didn't change. To him, Gongsun Fun's so-called power was no more than a flicker. With a simple motion, he neutralized the blow effortlessly. Gongsun Fun's eyes widened in horror. His full-force attack was swatted away like dust. Umo lazily flicked his wrist, and a black vortex appeared in the air. With a faint flick, he sent it hurtling toward Gongsun Fun. A chilling scream rang out before the man was swallowed whole. Even that gruesome fate didn't stop Nangong. Clenching his jaw, he blurted, "I'm from the Beast Tamer sect." Umo chuckled in disdain and snapped his fingers. The illusory mirage shattered with a pulse of golden light. At that instant, those at the ceremonial grounds finally sensed something was wrong. A towering column of black energy erupted in the distance. Staring at it grimly, Wanting muttered under his breath, "Demonic energy."